Today we're talking about the koi and water tattoo design. Welcome back. You may have seen this tattoo design in the using freehand video, but in this video we get to focus on this one tattoo design, and this one was a lot of fun, so let's get started, and make sure to hit the subscribe button. Our client would like a koi done in a Neo-Japanese style. Neo-Japanese is a style of tattooing where you take traditional themes from Japanese tattooing and then merge them with more modern shapes and shading. I usually do a lot of thumbnails when getting started, and you can do these on the computer or on paper. The shape of this area really wants a design that is tall and long, and the koi is the perfect creature for this shape. Our flow pattern for this design is very simple. We just want everything moving up and towards the front of the client, and there's a few ways we could extend the flow up the leg as well for future tattoos. Most tattoos require a lot of research, and this project allows me to revisit a few of my favorite Japanese artworks of koi. And here, I'm looking at some of the many ways that artists have approached this theme over the last 1,000 years. That's a long time. But our tattoo design today will not be traditional, though I do prefer my references to be authentic, so that's the reason why I mainly look at artwork from museums. There you'll find a huge amount of art plus all of the information on who made the art and when. If the content you're designing exists in real life, then it's usually a good idea to look at anatomy diagrams. I want to make sure to get all the visible fins of the fish in our design. And we're also going to learn a lot from photographic references. It's always interesting to see the animal behind the artwork, and it can be pretty surprising to see how different they sometimes are. Our design today will have more realistic light and shadow, so seeing how highlights behave in these photos can be really helpful. Leading up to their first consultation, our client has emailed us a bunch of references for their tattoo, so we'll keep these here for inspiration. And I'll also be referencing a practice sheet of waves that I previously made for another tattoo, and this will help us with the starting point when drawing our water. And you can feel free to screenshot this image and reference it for your own designs as well. I also generated a few images to get a few ideas for light and shadow. Now these images are not traditional at all, and they actually have pretty bad details in composition, but they do have some great ideas for lighting. There's an interesting idea here with the one side of the head covered in shadow, but also these really thin highlights, almost like a rim light. After I printed out my references and done my thumbnails and warm-ups, I begin my freehand drawing. I'm doing it on a plain 8.5 by 14 sheet of paper, and I'm starting with my hardest and dullest pencil. The trick here is to draw extremely light, and this takes a bit of practice. I want to fully build out the structure of the piece before committing to any of the shapes, and that involves some very light drawing. After that first layer is done, I can then go in with the slightly darker pass with the same pencil. And here I can add weight and definition to some of those lines. And I can also start adding details like the eyes and the scales as well. It's important to note that most of the lines that I've drawn so far will not be seen in the final artwork. They sort of get lost when I start to add darker shading. So I'm trying to keep things fast and loose and trying to not feel too much pressure. The lines that are made with a hard and dull pencil are very easy to erase, so this is a good time to really work those starting shapes. Drawing rows of scales like this can be a real challenge, but it can be very satisfying when you get it right. After that is started, I then go in with a third pass with the same pencil. This pass is similar to the last, only this time I'll be adding even more detail. This gives me a chance to start adding some of the fine lines that are in the fins, and I'm starting to add detail to the water in the background. And I'm also doing my first bit of crosshatch shading, just to get the most basic idea of how that might go. In this pass, you'll see me going back and forth, drawing lines, crosshatching shading, and erasing sections. This is a really important stage of the drawing. If you take some time to block things out, even with this very light crosshatching, you begin to see sort of a finished version of the drawing. And if there are any major changes you need to make, this is the perfect time to make them. The drawing that we have so far is very light and easy to erase, and things will become much more locked in as we move forward. In this next pass, things start to get a lot more serious since these are some of the details that we'll see in the final artwork. Here, I'm using my darkest pencil and using it to define the outline. And from this point on, I'll be finishing the artwork as I go from top to bottom. I'm doing this because this dark pencil really wants to smudge, so I'll only be going back up here for a few details at the end. To complete things as I go, I'm switching back and forth with my hard and soft pencils to block in all the shading. And I'm doing a lot of cross-hatching and doing my shading from lightest to darkest. And all of this shading is in relationship with each other, meaning if you make one area darker, you might have to adjust the shading in the surrounding areas. For that reason, I try to start the shading out in a light pass and then slowly add darkness from there. You'll also see me using my eraser to carve out sections of negative space for highlights, but I'm also cleaning up the first sketching in the lightest areas as well. And it's important to note that you can sort of see the first sketching disappear at this stage, and this is a good thing. It means that you can be really fast and sketchy with those first few layers, knowing that it's all going to be cleaned up in the end. And that will take a lot of the pressure off that critical first part of the drawing. So the drawing at this stage has 4 main things going on: a hard pencil, a soft pencil, a mechanical pencil, and an eraser. And I'm switching between the 4 as needed. And I should mention that the erasers that I'm using are the ones on the backs of the pencils for larger areas, and the eraser that I'm using for the small sections, like the rim light and the small highlights in the scales, are done with a mechanical eraser. And this is sort of like a mechanical pencil, but with a thin polymer eraser inside. And similar to a mechanical pencil, it's always sharp, and this is really useful, and you should try one out if you haven't already. Plus, just with my drawing style, I know that I'm going to be spending more and more time with fewer and fewer tools. And since I'm a minimalist when it comes to my drawing setup, I try to buy quality pencils, knowing that I'm going to put them to good use. All pencils are not created equal, and some work much better than others. And the erasers on some pencils work far better as well. So you want to take some time and research a great brand of pencils for your own drawings. What you don't see off camera is all the thumbnails and references that I have for this design. I'm able to look up while I'm working, and these help out a lot with the choices that I'm making. You'd be surprised how useful that tiny rough thumbnail can be when you're working on your final artwork. One thing you may notice is how the light lines sort of disappear once you do your first shading over an area. I have to then go back in and redo those lines, and as I do that, I can make slightly different choices and draw different lines. So even in this phase where we're locking in our final detail, you still have room to try out different ideas and make some different choices. There's probably a life lesson in there somewhere. And in these stages, I'm jumping around and making small changes to the entire drawing. This image is starting to have a good mix of light, medium, and dark values, but here I can make changes to those values as well. And with our drawing done, we scan it back into the computer, but you can also use your phone to take a photograph. Either way, we now get our first look at how this design fits the leg. As far as the fit, there are certain things that we have to look out for. It would be nice if the ankle was somewhere in the negative space in that large section of waves. And we have a few boundaries that we want to avoid. These are areas like the knee, in the back of the knee, and the lower part of the foot. And it looks like we have a little space to extend the water at the top. But a major thing that we want to look out for is wraparound. This large tail of the koi might wrap around in a way that is not good for the overall design. Now the other fins are small and they don't look like they're going to be a problem, but in order to see how this tail will fit, I'm going to have to make a quick stencil for the next meeting and test it out on my client. Our design has a very simple flow, and I usually prefer it that way. Everything just sort of feels springy and alive, with most of the major shapes moving up and towards the front of the client. But I'm still going to want to add a wave in this section here. And with that, we have a good start to our drawing and a big presentation to show our client during the next consultation. And that is the first draft of the Koi and Water tattoo design. Hey, if you got anything out of this, then help us out by hitting the like button. And subscribe to our channel, we come out with new videos often. And make sure to hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And if you're serious about creating the best art possible for your tattoos, then go to tattoodesignschool.com and check out the masterclass. This is everything I wish I knew when I was first starting out, and it will push you to create artwork you didn't think was possible. This is the perfect investment in your tattoo career, so check out the masterclass at tattoodesignschool.com. But most importantly, share this video with the person you know who's interested in artwork and tattoos. And we'll see you in the next one.